Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just wanted to report back to you after a very, very long break, over a month now. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It feels like a long time since we've spoken. The last time I spoke to you guys, we were doing Christmas lights. We were getting the house ready to go. I know I promised we were going to do a tour. That didn't end up happening, but anyway, here's a quick picture. At this point, everything is torn down. This used to have a bunch of houses and a tree back here, but that's all torn down now because, we need to get on with the new year. Speaking of which, today I wanted to go ahead and talk to you guys a little bit about my thinking for 2025 and how that's actually going to apply to the way things are going to be going forward, especially as we progress into 2025. So there's a lot of things to consider, especially if you're new to lawn care, you've been doing lawn care for a while. Maybe you have some idea of what you need to do to get your lawn ready to go for the season. Maybe you have never done this before. This video is going to apply to all of you. Now, with that being said, at this point in which I'm recording this video, it is freezing outside. It's actually been cold here in Northwest Indiana. We've had temperatures down below zero. And it's because of that, it's too cold. We can't really do anything right now, right? But that doesn't mean we can't plot for what to do in 2025 to have the deepest, darkest, greenest, thickest lawn on the block, which brings me to the topic of today's video. First thing we need to talk about is timing. So if you live in an area where I do, like I said, it's 50 degrees outside, we haven't done anything, we need to go ahead and be very strategic on when we start. The first thing that goes without saying, we don't want to fertilize frozen ground, right? Because the ground is frozen, the fertilizer is not going to be absorbed, and it's going to be more vulnerable to runoff. So we don't want to fertilize the lawn right now. So it's going to be a while until we can do that. So for us, that would probably be mid to late March, early April, depending on when the temperatures come into ideal range. Now, that raises another question. When are the temperatures going to be in ideal range, and how do we gauge that? Well, for us, like I said, it's going to be late March going into early to mid-April in some cases, depending on the severity of our winter and how long these cooler temperatures persist. But with that being said, how do we gauge when it's time? There is a site that I really, really like called Greencast Soil Temperatures, made by Syngenta. They're not a sponsor of me. Maybe they will be someday, but they're not a sponsor, but they're a page I really, really like to use. So whether you're a lawn professional in the field or somebody just getting started taking care of your own lawn, I live and die by this tool because it kind of helps us gauge when to start so that we're not fertilizing frozen ground and our fertilizer is going to be used up. So Greencast Soil Temperatures, I've actually done a full in-depth video where I talked about using it and how you can use it to use and how you can use the 5 and 10 year averages over the last decade or half decade to gauge when it'll most likely be time to get that first application down. If you haven't seen that video, we'll link it at the very end. It's a good watch for you to understand how you can actually get a little scientific, if you will, be a bit of a predictor in that sense to get your lawn ready for 2025. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk fertilizers. So as you guys know who've been watching for a while, the lawn care landscape has really changed a lot over the years. When I first started this channel, we were actually telling you guys to go to the big box store and buy fertilizers like Milorganite or buy starter fertilizers, which are still great options, albeit if I were running a business, which I am, Milorganite would be very expensive and not feasible for that from past experiences and just doing the numbers. Not really a feasible option. But if you're a DIYer and you want to have a little fun, that's a product you can get and it works really, really well. And we've also talked about starter fertilizers you could get from the store like Scott's Halts, which is starter fertilizer combined with crabgrass control. Those are really, really great entry-level products we've talked about before. But I want to go ahead and actually showcase you guys a cheaper, more effective option. So we actually have our own website called jakethelawn.net, where on there we sell a lot of fertilizers and fungicides and grub controls and all that stuff that you need throughout the year. Now in this video, we're just going to focus on the spring application, and we're going to zone in on those in the coming weeks as we approach the spring rush here in the next couple of months. So we have a couple of products that you can actually use in the spring depending on what your preferences are. Now, me personally, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm a liquid man. I love liquid fertilizers. I just think they tend to work better in that you get not only the root uptake, but you also get the foliar effect, especially with fertilizers. I just find that to be more effective. And I think the fact that you can tank mix them together is pretty cool. Whereas with granulars, depending on what you get, you might have to do 2 apps in one day, or in most cases, you might have to look for something that's pre-formulated and get that ahead of time. Now, we don't have options like that, but as a DIYer, it's actually better to keep them separate because you can be a little more unlocked, but we'll talk about that here in a second. So anyway, I'm a liquid man. I like the liquids. And in the springtime, if I was going to pick anything off of my website, I would pick the 2600 green charge. Now, there's another one we don't have on here yet, and I'll actually announce it in the coming weeks when we do. The N charge 2800, that's a step up from the green charge. Those two products are really good. I think the N-Charge might be a little bit better for that spring application because you can get closer to 3/4 pounds of nitrogen depending on how ambitious you are with that application. Again, more that we'll talk about in future videos. If you want, you can get the Green Charge. That product will work pretty well. You put that down at 24 ounces per thousand. That product works really, really well. I really do like the prodiamine that we have. We have the WDG. We actually have a small one that you could put in a pump sprayer if you want to zone off small areas, or if you want to have one that you can keep for a couple of years, or maybe you have a bigger property, then I would recommend the larger size, which we also have on jakethelawn.net. Works very, very well. You can get that, and if you have a small 5,000 square foot lawn, if you go by the application rate, that'll actually last you a while. Or again, if you don't want to do that, you don't want to store chemical over time, we do have a smaller option as well. So it just goes to show the world is really your oyster with the liquids. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk granulars, because I know there's a lot of people out there who aren't quite ready for the liquids yet. That's fine. We have something for you as well in the granular department. Now, for a fertilizer, I really like the 2406 flagship product. That's a great product. It spreads nicely. It's got nice uniform granules. It's a really good product you could put on your lawn in the springtime at 3 pounds per thousand. That'll give you about 3/4 pounds of nitrogen to wake your lawn up after a long hibernation through the winter. That's a really good one to put down in your fertilizer spreader in the spring. Now, as I mentioned before, we don't really carry fertilizers that are mixed with pre-emergence because we want our users to have a little more of an unlocked experience, so we keep those separate. So that's where the 007 granular prodiamine would come in. Now, that also goes down at 3 pounds per thousand, so when you're looking at your spreader settings, which we're not going to get into in this video because it's a technical subject, but we can talk about it. If you guys want to hear about that, comment below, and maybe I'll make a video about it, because we often do get questions about spreader settings, whether we're pros or DIYers out there. Just something we can cover. So the cool thing, though, about these two products, or really all of the granular products that we have in our site, is that they all go down at 3 pounds per thousand, and the pellets are all the same as far as size and consistency goes. And because of that, once you set your spreader and you commit to this line of products, you don't have to readjust your spreader. It's adjusted for the season, and you just put your fertilizer in the spreader, and you're good to go. Like, you're smooth cruising. You don't have to readjust. Maybe get in there and clean it once in a while, but other than that, once you set it, you could forget it for the rest of the season. That's the cool part about the granular products. Check out some videos here that'll assist you even further in gauging when it's time to go and utilizing our fertility products. Click here to subscribe to see more.